Welcome to Beyond the Pitch, the original Beyond the Pitch. I'm your host today, Ian Joy, alongside Phil Brown. Phil, we have had some incredible responses from our recent shows on social media. It has been fantastic to see the response from everybody. Keep those tweets coming to Joy Paul Ian, and tell everyone what the name is of your Twitter handle, Phil, and what the meaning is behind it.
So the meaning, the name is Malachians, and the meaning is it's an Irish football team that I played for. And when I picked this in, I never knew I was going to grow into an A-list celebrity, so I do apologise.
Well, that's okay. Listen, don't worry about it. You've certainly got the face for radio, right? Let's move on, and we'll talk a little bit at Beyond the Pitch. You can follow there as well on social media. Great show coming up for you today. Obviously, keep those responses coming. We want to know from you. We want to hear questions from you as well, and what you think, what you'd like us to talk about in future shows. But we'll start today's show on Champions League. We've just witnessed what's happened in the group stages in the Champions League. And Phil, I want to start with Group A in the Champions League with Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain, two teams who have qualified. Arsenal getting first place in the table as well, looking very good and very comfortable in UEFA Champions League so far this season. They could be up for a very difficult game because there's a lot of big teams that have finished in that second spot, the runners-up spot in Champions League positions, to maybe meet them in the knockout round.
Well, all right, they finished top of the group against PSG. No, brilliant, perfect. Them and PSG essentially got a bye, and Ludogorets and Basel, right? Yep. So they essentially had two tests in this group, PSG, home and away. And so you have to give them credit because they finished top of the group. Do you know, it's funny, Ian, look, Arsenal do this to everybody. You can look at Arsenal and easily make a case to say, this should be the best team in the league. Alexis Sanchez is sensational. Mesut Ozil, magnificent. But you just feel once we get into this group, the knockout stages, they've done well to finish top of the group because if you look at previous knockout stages, finishing second has cost them heavily by getting a really difficult draw in the next round. But you just feel with Arsenal, even if they get a good draw in the next round, they get through. I can't see him getting past the quarterfinals unless the draws count to them all the way.
So you think it's business as usual for Arsene Wenger? Absolutely. He's done his job. He's got to the Champions League. Mm-hmm. They're through the group stage. They now get to the knockout stage, and it's either this round that's coming up with the 32 or whatever 16 that they will find themselves going out.
I don't think they're a threat to any of the best teams in Europe. So yes, that would be the case. They haven't strengthened significantly in the areas that keep letting them down, and so for me, it's just a matter of time until they get a difficult draw. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and they'll be comfortable.
All right, let's move on to Group C, which was Barcelona and Manchester City. Now, we've seen Manchester City play a weaker side against Glasgow Celtic and pretty much got punished for playing that weaker team. Glasgow Celtic came with a strong team. They put a great deal of energy into that match, as you would have expected. But City, again, not necessarily taking advantage of some of these opportunities for youngsters to play and also squad players to take their chance and maybe push themselves into Pep's starting 11.
Yeah, so they play, probably the best player on the pitch was a Man City player, and young Paddy Roberts. Fantastic finish for that kid. But you look at the City team in Caballero, Cliche, young defender, I can barely pronounce his name, Sanya, Maffeo, Zabaleta, Fernando, Gundogan, Sane, Nolito, Iheanacho.
Yeah.
Where's the young players in City's academy that they've spent untold fortunes on? Where's these young players? Iheanacho is a good young talent, don't get me wrong, but you take a look at what it cost to put that team together. I mean, that's £100 million team easily.
Yeah.
I think Celtic have come down there. And in many ways, Ian, if you go back to the first leg, with the first team to put cracks in Man City and show this is how you beat Man City, even though it was a 3-each draw, but still show this is their vulnerabilities. And then you could easily make a case that Man City never fully recovered from the 3-each up at Parkhead. So Celtic were always a massive outsider in this group. City have won 2 games in this group. Not impressive by any means, and Guardiola has not shown anything to me yet to suggest that he's going to vastly improve City in Europe.
Barcelona scored an incredible 20 goals, which equaled the group stage scoring record, but that was to be smashed by Borussia Dortmund, who scored 21. And to get that incredible result at the Bernabeu against Real Madrid, they finished top of Group F, which was an unbelievable achievement from Borussia Dortmund, who are sixth domestically in the Bundesliga at this moment in time, really struggling for consistency. They do let in some goals, but they score a lot of goals, Phil, and they're a fun team to watch.
They were 2-0 down that game, come back to 2. It's big Aubameyang would walk into any team in Europe. Big, tough, strong, centre forward, scores goals, makes goals. But Ian, just put this into perspective for a second, because Borussia Dortmund over the last 6 or 7 years have spoiled us.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the money that they have spent, or the lack thereof, in comparison to Real Madrid. Take a look at Dortmund's starting lineup and how much was actually spent on it. Take a look at what they sell every year. It's an absolute miracle that this team is competing and finishing above Real Madrid. Because if you look at other teams that spend a lot more, or spend the equivalent of, they're nowhere near that level. Fantastic coaching, fantastic scouting. They know their best team. Brilliant young players. You want to talk about young players? My
Talent.
God, Pulisic, young Emery Moore. What a talent that kid is. My God. And Borussia Dortmund know where they're going to be 2-3 seasons from now. They prepare. If Aubameyang goes, he's not a like-for-like replacement, obviously, but Thomas Tuchel has done a brilliant job, and they're brilliant to watch. They broke the record. Again, Legia Warsaw and Sporting Lisbon. Okay, Sporting Lisbon are not awful, but depends. They can either be decent or very weak, depends on who they sell that summer. But to finish top of a group above Real Madrid, Ian, is a fantastic achievement, and all plaudits to them.
You know, I actually was really impressed with their performance at the Bernabeu. I will touch on it in a second, but first and foremost, my opinion on Real Madrid was a great point that my friend Warren Barton made on our Champions League show, that Real Madrid tired in that game. In the second half, they were going up against a young team that you just mentioned. Really exciting teenagers. You've got young 20-year-olds, an exciting Borussia Dortmund side that plays with high energy, a really good formation where they push the fullbacks far forward. And it's exciting, but it also tires out the opponents. And I thought the last 30, maybe 35 minutes of that match, Real Madrid looked so tired in the game. Marcelo got ran over 2 or 3 times by Pulisic on the wing. Then Emery came onto the field. Aubameyang went in behind him for the equalising goal with that cross. Marco Reus came on and dominated for 10, 15 minutes of the match and got the equaliser. I felt like Real Madrid just maybe lacked a little bit of heart in that game, but also looked very, very tired. And it might have had something to do with the Clásico at the weekend, which was a poor game, but they invested a lot of energy into that to get their equaliser in the last minutes of the Clásico against Barcelona. So, interesting enough, Borussia Dortmund now top the group. That's a team that nobody really will want to face in the knockout rounds. Group G, Leicester City. They finished top of the group.
Before you go though, Ian, I just want to make one point on Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Zinedine Zidane needs to get some young French players into that team with this transfer ban. And we saw them a week before against Cultural Leonesa, which was a nothing game. A couple of decent young players coming in there. I'm shocked that he is not trying to shoehorn young kids into this team, because you're quite right. After the Clásico, they look tired, and they badly need to get a couple of kids in that team with the transfer ban.
Yeah, let's turn our attention to Leicester City and Group G. Yeah. I mean, they lost, obviously, embarrassingly so, against Porto in that last game, who then moved up to second place to qualify above Copenhagen. But Leicester City, we have to give some credit to them, Phil. Even though so many people are criticising them after their incredible season last year, finishing up as champions of the Premier League, it's not gone so well for them in that second year after being champions. It's really been tough for them in the Premier League to pick up victories and also to find form for some of their star players. But in the Champions League, to only concede 1 goal in your first 5 Champions League games, that's unbelievable. They had nothing to worry about in the final game because they were already qualified.
Well, first of all, they earned the right to lose the game. Secondly, how long did it take Man City to get out of the group stages of a Champions League qualify? But whenever they were qualifying, spending millions? I mean, this is the... Everybody knew that last season they vastly overachieved. They got fortunate with the lack of injuries. A couple of key players were played above themselves, and there was always going to be that adjustment to where Leicester City's level is. They're a mid-table football team. They've just qualified for the knockout stages of the Champions League, finishing the top of their group against Porto, Copenhagen, Bruges. Okay, not exactly giants, but look, nonetheless, this is a team that have never played in the Champions League. Claudio Ranieri has done an unbelievable job. And Man City, who repeatedly failed at this level, and well, it's going to take us some time to get pedigree. Whatever happens from this point forward, they've overachieved. Tottenham are out.
What do you think of Tottenham playing at Wembley Stadium? I mean, surely that hasn't helped them in their process, trying to win games,
Nope.
Trying to make the atmosphere great, trying to make it as difficult as it is to win at White Hart Lane, where it is always tough to go play. It looked like they really struggled at Wembley.
And they haven't won there since 2008. They played there 6 times since 2008 and haven't won. Prior to playing at Wembley, they had one training session. And that was it. Now, if you take a look at 98 to 2000...
Is that true? One training session before they played?
One training session. And in order to try to replicate White Hart Lane, they put things like the club crest on the stands. Now, they're going to play there at home next season, right? But if you look at 98 to 2000, Arsenal played their home games at Wembley. They won 2 out of 6 in the Champions League. In 2000, they get knocked out of the Champions League, went into the UEFA Cup, played the rest of their games at Highbury and got to the UEFA Cup final. There's no doubt about it. That has a big factor in whether you qualify or not. They lost their first 2 games. They just beat CSKA Moscow, the first win at home. And so I would be really worried if I was a Tottenham fan about what's going to happen next season playing there. Take a look at West Ham. Take a look at Arsenal's first season at the Emirates. It takes time in before these stadiums feel like home and they start getting that home advantage. So Tottenham, I think, out of the Champions League, fine. I mean, they've been knocked out quicker than one of Hope Solo's nephews at the family reunion, right? So Tottenham knocked out first round. But the bigger problem for me is their next season at home.
Well, they'll have a few games in the Europa League to play in if they do well in the knockout stages of the Europa League, right? So they drop down into that competition.
In the Europa League.
And they'll play at Wembley there. So it's the same thing. I know this is completely off topic, but the same thing happened in the Premier League with West Ham moving to that big stadium. They're struggling to pick up results at home because of it.
It's definitely a factor. There's it takes a while before these stadiums feel like home. I don't have the exact stats of what it's like for teams to move into new stadiums and before it starts to feel like home.
Right.
But you compare West Ham with last season to this season. They're sitting in 17th.
No comparison, right?
They're sitting in 17th, Ian. They lost 5-1 at home at the weekend. Before that, they drew 1-1 at home with Stoke. Their home record's not great this season. So you're again a team for me that overperformed last season. And they have a problem. Dimitri Payet's still been their best player this season, along with Mikel Antonio, but he looks disinterested. But
it's crazy though, Phil. Don't you think? That is a big factor. You move to a new stadium, you would think that Tottenham obviously taking advantage of Wembley Stadium in the Champions League to give them that warm up before they move over there.
85,000 of both are at the first 2 games.
That's frightening, really. That support is really incredible. Great for the club, obviously, to financially as well. It also helps them. But now find themselves now out of the Champions League, Tottenham, and into the Europa League. Let's talk about the Europa League and talk about your beloved Manchester United. Very interesting game. Obviously, Mourinho criticised the conditions ahead of the game yesterday when he talked about snowy field, hard field. Why on earth was the game being played in December in Ukraine? Why could we not have played this before elsewhere or played earlier against this Ukrainian side? But he was happy today. The field looked like it was decent enough to play on, and the performance was really good from United, I thought.
The performances have been really good, Ian. What's been costing United has been poor finishing, and they have switched off. They've made stupid mistakes, individual errors. When United have conceded, it hasn't been because the team's been dominating them. The performances have been good, much better. People forget last season United were cheering corners, right? And this is night and day. Mourinho is clearly working it out, and it's going to take time, but you can see the progress. Bailly was immense. Sometimes you don't notice how good a player is until you don't have him. And if you look at Bailly out, then back in tonight, superb performance. Mkhitaryan's really starting to believe he's a Man United player, growing into that position, fantastic. And when you're a football player struggling for confidence, one of the biggest things you can do is score a vital goal. If you score the fourth and a 4-0 win, it helps. But if you score a goal, your team needs a win, 1-0, and you score the first goal to change the course of a game, that's going to give Mkhitaryan big confidence. But just to finish on that, Ian, listen, when United got the fixtures, they looked at this, and I'm sure they said, last game in the Ukraine, we better make sure we go there not needing a result. Right. Mm-hmm. Go to Ukraine in December. Bring in bring your French squad, and you're fine. But I will say, 2 careers finished at Manchester United prior to this game. Morgan Schneider and Memphis Depay. Careers are finished. Wayne Rooney gets taken off, and he looked like me whenever my wife tells me that in-laws are on the way over.
I will agree with you at the fact that this was a big result for Manchester United. Tells me a lot about the character of the team, that they can go to Ukraine knowing that they need to get a result and put in a performance like that, especially after Jose Mourinho has gone out already and said that the field is bad. It's as if he's given an excuse to the team not to perform on the day, or maybe backing up potentially the fact that the team could lose or not get a result there. But I thought the performance was very good. Bailly, you mentioned, that's a big player to have back. He made 2 or 3 interceptions that, for me, was world class. He stepped up at the right moment, grabbed the ball away. He's aggressive. He was lucky boy, though. He almost got sent off in the match with that little lash out. And he could have been had the referee caught it, or even if the referee had witnessed the swing of the leg. Regardless of it being a foul, he should never have lashed out.
He might still get suspended for that, Ian. They could look at that later and suspend him.
I hate that, Phil. I hate the fact that they can go back and look at these video evidence and find them later on. They do it in Major League Soccer. I've actually experienced it myself as a player and been fined. You receive the letter and you've been suspended a game, and we're going to take 500 or 600 whatever it is off you and fine you because of this. And you think, why? Why? Just because you missed it first time around and the referee missed it, you've got to go back and watch it on video evidence? I don't agree with that. Anyway, Mkhitaryan's performance for me doesn't surprise me, because I've watched him play like that for many years now at Dortmund, and the Bundesliga certainly misses him. But Manchester United are so lucky to have that player. If they can make him feel confident and make him feel loved, Phil, believe me, this guy is going to be immense in the Premier League. The goal he scored, Phil, was top class. The little nutmeg at the end, the confidence it takes, especially when you've not scored, and I think it was 11 appearances made for Manchester United, never scored a goal. That goal right there tells me that he's back to his best, he's got confidence, he's training well, and he's 100% healthy.
And when we talked about leaders in the previous show, about players that can take a ball, change the game whenever you badly need a piece of magic, and if you looked at United's build-up, it was so slow. The movement of Rooney and Ibrahimovic was really, really poor, really predictable. United were not cutting Zora open, and this has been a problem for them. So they need somebody that can pick a ball up from deep, skip past the player, make something happen, score a goal. When you looked at that United team, you said, they have the players that can do it. Mata can do it, but Mata doesn't have the pace to do it. Mkhitaryan can do it. Mkhitaryan been doing it for Dortmund. And when I was saying, second half, if United are going to score, it's going to come from something like this. And then once you score, the game changes, because Zora have a choice. Do you come out and open up, or do you just accept the 1-0 either way? But you have to score. And Mkhitaryan changed the game, scored a lovely goal, and will give him huge confidence. So,
Did you expect Zlatan to be as good as he has been since he's arrived at Manchester United? I know people have criticised him and his age, and he's looked slower and it's taken some time to settle, but I think that was his 13th in all competitions since he's arrived at United. That's not a bad turnaround for someone of his age and settling into the Premier League at Manchester United with all the pressure. He's playing a lot of games.
No, especially when you take into consideration what United spent on Falcao, for example, and it didn't work. Look, even if he scored goals throughout his career, I always felt he would come in and score goals. But he's been inconsistent, Ian. And where he has disappointed me is in games where United badly needed a goal, he went missing in those games. He went missing away at Anfield, badly needed a goal. Against Stoke at home, when United battered Stoke, badly needed a goal. At home to Burnley, badly needed a goal. He's not there. We had a one-on-one against West Ham. The one each at home, he hits the keeper's legs with it. I would rather Ibrahimovic scored a few less goals, but scored more key goals. And I think because United are badly missing that type of player that has the composure to grab a game by the scruff of the neck. So scoring the second away to Zoira with a couple of minutes to go, okay. Scoring the third against Swansea when you're 2-0 up, so to me, I think what I would rather see Ibrahimovic do is in the games that are really tight, when you badly need a goal, I want to see him score those goals. That's what
those decisive goals.
Yes,
yeah, they're priceless goals. I agree, and I think they will come for him, Phil. If he continues this form, he will find those goals. All right, let's stay in the Europa League. We'll go to an interesting group that caught my attention from the get-go, and it was Group K, and we're looking at it right now.
Yep.
Sparta Prague, Hapoel Beersheva, Southampton, and Inter Milan.
Incredible.
The league finished with Sparta Prague on top, Hapoel Beersheva, the Israeli side, second. Southampton somehow throwing the game away against Hapoel Beersheva at home, and then Inter Milan finishing drop. A little bit about Southampton first and foremost. They just looked like they were completely misfits in the Europa League this campaign. They didn't really have too much confidence. Some tired legs in there. The youngsters didn't necessarily shine as much as I expected them to, Phil.
Yeah, they have some very, very good young players, but it's a more magnificently run football club. Southampton is probably the most compartmentalised football club in the Premier League. If they sack a manager, that's just one department. Nobody gets to come in and have revolution at Southampton and overhaul every department per the manager's liking. Claude Puel will have been long looked at to replace Koeman, and said if Koeman goes, that's who comes in. So, and I look at them and I'm a little bit concerned about them in the January transfer window, with them now being out of Europe. Van Dijk and Font. Font is going to leave in January. Van Dijk is wanted by a lot of big teams who are willing to spend big money. Southampton, we know, will sell. I don't think they're going to be overly concerned with going out here, Ian.
Yeah.
I think Claude Puel has a massive job now in January in trying to keep this Southampton squad together, because we've been saying this for a while, but they don't have losing two centre halves is probably the two worst players next to losing two quality strikers in a team. You can lose a left back, a right back, a winger, whatever, but losing two quality centre halves where there's a dearth of them, I worry about them.
They certainly disappointed me, that's for sure. I think the biggest disappointment in that group, and actually in the whole of the Europa League competition, for me personally, was Inter Milan and the way that they finished that group. They were just desperate. Obviously, had issues with their coaches, Icardi having problems with the whole club and the supporters. Inter Milan is just a mess, and you can see by the results recently and in the Europa League that they are a complete mess. So UEFA Champions League and UEFA Europa League is completely set now. We know the knockout rounds. I know there's one game tomorrow that was postponed today in the Europa League because of fog, but that doesn't mean anything because all the teams are already set in place for the knockout stages. We got to move on, and let's move on to the Premier League. I know there was some excellent performances last weekend, some big games, but this weekend there's a few juicy ones. I'm going to start off with a really big one for you, Phil. And there's maybe a little bit more of an American hint to this one with Swansea versus Sunderland. Not many people expected that one to be the big juicy one, but for Bob Bradley, this could be a make or break game for him after recent comments about I'm an American, people are picking on me. The results have been pretty much shockingly bad for him since he's arrived, and things don't seem to be going well. If he loses this game, Phil, he's under real pressure, surely.
He's already under pressure, and he's won 1 in 7. What are they're 2 points adrift at the bottom of the league. It's funny because Swansea were fighting for Guidolin. The players were playing for him. I watched them against Man City. I think it was the game before he was sacked, and they scored the life out of Man City. I watched them against Chelsea, and Bob has a difficult job on his hands. He got the job for a reason, and does he suffer a bit from skepticism over being an American coach? I have no doubt. I'm sure that's part of it. It's unfair, but that's the game, and he knows that, and he knew that before he took the job, that American coaches are fighting for credibility the same way American players were fighting for credibility 20 something years ago when they were going over the Premier League in the early 90s. When Joe Maximour and Brian McBride was going over, they were fighting for credibility. Here comes Americans, they don't know anything about the sport, which is just it's wrong, right? And Americans have some of the most brilliant tactical brains in the game, but unfortunately, and the reality is they're fighting for credibility amongst players, which is far more serious. And you and I both know, you've played at the highest level. players, when a new manager comes in, make a decision on that new manager very quickly. And they'll decide very quickly whether he's alpha enough to run the dressing room and whether they respect his methods. The thing that's going to help him is January's right around the corner. And if Swansea have to back him, the problem that he has, Ian, players coming to Swansea are going to look for clauses, get-out clauses. If you go down, I want out. High committed are players that are coming into a football club saying, if you go down, I want out. And how do you sign top players that are going to get you out of that desperately want to get you out of that whenever you're sitting bottom of the league with 9 points?
I'm also hearing a few rumours from behind the scenes that potentially Swansea have a get-out clause from Bob Bradley around about the Christmas stage where they can walk away from him or they have to pay him a certain amount to be able to get it. It's almost as if it was expected to fail before it even started. I mean, everyone sort of points the finger at the coach no matter what. The manager's the man to blame 100%. But this guy took over a team that was struggling at the bottom of the table. He came in with a new idea, got the job, obviously impressed in an interview. But the players... My biggest issue is with Premier League players, especially at a club like Swansea, where there's a lot of history. The supporters are fantastic, but they're all about their history and their culture and their football. And I'm not sure he was accepted from the get-go, Bob Bradley. I really don't believe that. I can't imagine Bob Bradley walking into a training session and even in the dressing room, giving his first team talk in the manner that he does. Even though I'm impressed with it, I don't think many people who are in Premier League dressing rooms would sit back, take notice of Bob Bradley and listen to exactly what he's saying and respect it 100%. I just don't feel that from the Swansea City players, especially when you watch their performances recently. It's been crap.
Track record means so much in this business. When you're walking into a dressing room and you want instant respect.
Yeah.
And when you're walking into a dressing room as an American, you're fighting for credibility off the bat. In order to get credibility, you have to be able to put something on the table that says, I've done this, I'm worth believing in. And you know players are spineless and they'll look for a way out, right? The players know Bob will get the blame, Bob will get the sack, I'll still be here, I'll get my wages, and then I'll take the wage at the end of the season and get me out. So if they can push us back onto him, they will. I think when you're in this situation, you need experience. You need experience in the Premier League, first of all. You need somebody that's going to come in that...
I'm surprised he's not brought somebody in who has Premier League experience, maybe as a side or as an assistant. You know, I was always thinking that maybe Brad Friedel would be the one that he would bring in as an American who's played 400 plus Premier League games. Why would he not bring someone who's got that Premier League experience or even someone who's a cult hero in Swansea or even in Wales to help him?
I just hope, Ian, if he takes Swansea down, they give him a crack at the Championship, because you can't be committed to the guy for a couple of months. Here's the thing. Everyone says it's brilliant that Bob Bradley's a Premier League manager, but I just and look, he had to take the job because there wasn't like anybody else was ringing Bob and offering him a job in the Premier League. But and that's not no disrespect to the guy, But I think, was this the right job for Bob Bradley to start out in the Premier League? Probably not. Bob is obviously very, very conscious of his image and how he's being portrayed. I'll give you an example. A colleague, a friend of mine, Scott Nichols, on Twitter, you can find Scott on Twitter. Google him, search for Scott on Twitter. Sat down with Bob Bradley for an hour last week and done a brilliant interview with him. First class. Check that interview out and listen to what Bob Bradley says in there, because Ian, clearly he's very concerned about how he's being perceived, and Scott is fantastic at what he does. So if you get a chance, listen to that interview.
Check it out.
I think he's concerned with that anti-American perception, and I think he has a problem with that. In that interview, he also explains why Key's not in the team, which is interesting. So I just think, Ian, he's lacking some players. Defensively, they're all over the place. They conceded 5 at Tottenham, 4 against Palace, but there's goals in that team, and when you've got goals, you've a puncher's chance.
Yeah, you still give yourself a chance. Right, back to the top of the table. Chelsea up against West Brom this weekend. West Brom not having a bad season at all, sitting 7th in the Premier League right now. Only lost 4 out of the 14 games so far played this season. Yep. But against Chelsea, do you give them any chance when they've got to go to Chelsea and play?
They're away at Chelsea, are they?
They're away to Chelsea. That game's on Sunday.
Nope.
No chance?
Not a chance. That's a Chelsea team that's flying. West Brom will not be someone that's going to go there and cause them any problems. Do
you not think that West Brom could go there and potentially play with no expectations? Nobody's expecting them to go there and get a result. So maybe they could go there confident knowing that we can play our own game and potentially get a couple of goals, because they score goals.
Not unless they sneak about another 3 players on the pitch. There's no way. You're right though. They do score goals, and I think Tony Pulis has done a fantastic job at making West Brom a solid team that has no illusions about who they are. They're very, very direct and very efficient. They're not someone that's going to knock a ball about. They're good on set pieces. Chris Brunt has been his back fit for them. Good on set pieces. There's nothing flashy about them, but I think when you look at them, Ian, I'll tell you what, they're getting the best out of Johnny Evans.
Yeah, I agree.
But they're all right in the centre of defence there. But I think Chelsea, in the form that they're in, I can't see. They're obviously going to lose games, but I don't know where that's coming from, because they're answering every question that's asked them.
I think there might be an upset there. I'll come to your prediction in just a moment. Let's talk about Arsenal sitting second in the table right now. They're playing against 9th place Stoke City. That's also at home for Arsenal. Stoke City, comfortable win for Arsenal?
Absolutely. That's a type of game Arsenal win and win well. Right? They'll take Stoke.
Why?
They'll take them to the cleaners. It's Stoke. Listen, Mark Hughes has done a good job with Stoke. Very similar to West Brom in that... although Peter Coates has put pressure on Hughes to get them to play attractive football, but and they do have some very, very good players. But I think Arsenal, they're a type of team, if you let them play, they'll murder you, right? Mm-hmm. I think Arsenal are the best football team in the Premier League to watch. Although Liverpool, I would have to say, are challenging them for that. But
I agree.
In terms of cosmetics, easy on the eye, they're brilliant. Stoke will let them play. And I think in that situation, unless Stoke make it a really ugly game and dig in and backs to the wall,
or Arsenal just don't show up. I mean, that could potentially happen too.
They'll win the game. Arsenal will be comfortable. That's a game. The only time I worry about Arsenal is when there's expectation. Is when it's a pressure situation where they have to win. They're not in that situation yet. And so I think the record against Stoke at home is... let's look at their last game against Stoke. At home, 2-0,
goals galore.
3-0, 3-1. Not great away to Stoke, I will say that. They always seem to have a problem up with the Britannia. Because Stoke make that an ugly game up at the Britannia. Elbows flying. Blowing ball, because against Arsenal, if you're going to beat Arsenal, you have to make a game ugly. At home, not a chance.
All right, United going up against Tottenham. Obviously a big matchup for Manchester United because they want to try and close that gap on Tottenham, who are sitting in 5th. And this is almost coming at the right time for United, ahead of the fixture list that's coming up around Christmas, where there's a lot of points to be won for United and for teams who are pushing for European places. This is a big one for United against Tottenham. This is a big one for Mourinho. It's a big one for a lot of players, because the expectation now is starting to get really high for United with recent performances. Tottenham, obviously disappointing to be knocked out of the Champions League, have still got a point to prove. They're also sitting outside of that 4th spot at the moment, trying to catch up to Manchester City. This is a big game for United and for Tottenham.
United badly need consistency. They need back-to-back wins. They need to build on the result on Thursday. When you talk about the nightmares of the Europa League, you're thinking a Thursday fixture away in Russia, Ukraine, some far-off flung part of Europe, and then coming back. That's the nightmare scenario of the Europa League, and that's what United are going to have to deal with. And now they have a situation where you're like, okay, Mkhitaryan's played 75 minutes. Do we start him on Sunday? after playing. We have to because he's played well.
Yes.
But now you're dealing with fatigue issues, so now you've got an issue where the players that played well on Thursday, do you play them at the weekend? Tottenham have had the extra day's rest. They were at home. They come into this with a massive advantage. But United have been playing really, really well. And if they find the killer touch in front of goal, they win the game. Because I still think Tottenham suffer from Tottenham issues, very similar to Arsenal in that they can be great to watch, although Tottenham aren't as good as Arsenal. But mentally, very fragile. They need to get Alderweireld, I think it is, has got the 30 million release clause. Get him signed quickly because it was released this week at, I think it was Alderweireld. It wasn't for Tonga. I think it was Alderweireld. Has a 30 million release clause in his contract. Madness. Top defender. You look at, United's weaknesses are just finishing, essentially. And of course, defending. They have problems against individually skillful players. Not teams dominating them. And so I think I don't see United losing the game. I think Mourinho's going to build a very strong United at Old Trafford.
I'm with you. I think if there ever is a game for United to prove a point, this would be the perfect time to do it. After coming off a strong performance in the Europa League in Ukraine, you've got some confidence behind some of the players who were French players are coming back from injury. I think this is the perfect time for United to put out a really strong team. Tottenham dangerous, obviously they can score goals, we know how dangerous they are up front, but I think that Manchester United prove a point in this match that they mean business and catch up a few points.
I'll tell you what, Ian, either scenario wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me to see United go on a 15-game, 16-game unbeaten run.
Right.
And it wouldn't shock me to see United go and win 2 of their next 10 because they draw and throw stupid points away. They're right on that precipice. They're really close, right? And I'm telling you, I love what Mourinho's doing. This has been entertaining. United are good to watch, and he's sorting that dressing room out.
God, it's been a while since I've heard someone say that about Manchester United.
I know, it's true.
They're entertaining. They're good to watch. All right, I'm putting you on the spot. Give me some predictions. We'll start off with United against Tottenham. Give me the score. That's all I want to hear from you.
United beat Tottenham 2-0.
I'm going to say 3-2 because I know that Tottenham are dangerous in front of goal, and I think that one's going to be an entertaining game. Liverpool play West Ham. Give me your score prediction on that one.
Where's it at? Anfield? Or
it's at Anfield. Liverpool sitting third in the table, only a point behind Arsenal.
Liverpool win.
Score.
No Coutinho, but
West Ham are having a so-so season. They're at the bottom of the table. They're fighting a little bit. They're struggling at home, but away from home, they're not too bad.
They haven't won in the league since what? Since they beat Sunderland back in October. So they've drawn and lost the rest of their games. Liverpool comfortably.
Score.
3-0.
Chelsea, they're at home, as we just talked about, obviously against West Bromwich Albion. Tough game.
Yeah, very tough. 4-0 with Chelsea.
4-0 with Chelsea in a tough matchup. I'm going to go with West Brom getting the first goal in that game, but Chelsea winning it 3-1. All right, last one I want to talk about is Arsenal against Stoke City. Give me a score for that one.
3-1 Arsenal.
Oh, okay, I'll finish with one more. We'll talk a little bit about Manchester City as well. They're away to Leicester, the champions. That's a good one. That's the final game on the Saturday. We haven't talked about that yet, but give me your score prediction for that one. City looking pretty good recently, even though Pep's still struggling with that consistency.
Yeah, Leicester City very, very beatable right now. For me, City go there and win by a couple of goals, 2 or 3-1. No Vardy. They should have sold Vardy last season, Ian. You had to have known that Jamie Vardy wasn't going to repeat what he did last season. 30 million quid from Arsenal. Snatch that hand off for it.
He would have been a decent sign, I think, for Arsenal. I think he would have kept on some good form had he gone to Arsenal, had a decent Euros and been given better opportunity by England at the Euros. I think he would have been a decent signing. 30 million is probably a little bit of a stretch, but after a season like that, Phil, it's not bad money for a player who scored that many goals in the Premier League and won the title.
It's a brilliant sale for Leicester, but what it shows you, Ian, is just how shallow the scouting is at Arsenal, that they're reaching for Jamie Vardy after one decent season. That's the best they can come up with, and nothing else out there. Wenger used to be brilliant at scouting and unearthing players. Shows you Arsenal aren't close to getting another striker for Giroud.
It's ridiculous, though. When you think of Arsenal, why they haven't gone for someone like Aubameyang? Let's say, if you look at last summer's transfer window,
Lucas Vazquez. What was that kid's name? Look, I forgot his name.
Let me just mention this, though. Higuain was on the market before he went to Juve. That, for me, would have been the perfect signing for Arsenal. Had you signed Higuain, you would have got a striker who's in the best form of his life at this moment in time, comes to the Premier League in fine form, and I think they need that type of player, that deadly striker in front of goal to bag you a goal when the team's not playing well. They've lacked that.
And they had the chance to sign Higuain when he was leaving Real Madrid for Napoli and wouldn't pay the fee then. So the chances that they were going to pay the fee from Napoli to Juventus when it was double the fee, not a chance. So
what about Aubameyang's another name that's been mentioned that I think is another good fit for them. They're not going to spend that type of money, are they?
Of course he's a good fit. He's a good fit for any team in Europe, but Arsenal are not spending that type of money.
What about United, Aubameyang?
100%. Brilliant replacement for Ibrahimovic. Perfect replacement. That striker, that number 9 that Aubameyang is, big, powerful striker. PSG are persevering with Cavani because they can't get another one of those.
Yeah.
United are going to sign Griezmann in the summer. So it'll not be Aubameyang, but Griezmann would work brilliant with an Aubameyang, with the link striker. Ibrahimovic, big question marks over his future next season. I'm not getting into it here. But whether he's there or not next season, I don't know. But if he is there, he'll still score goals for United with Griezmann playing off him. But Aubameyang would be a brilliant signing for anybody. And with Real Madrid's transfer ban and him desperate to go there, he may stay with Borussia Dortmund for another year, Ian.
All right, before we finish, I want to touch on a little bit of Bundesliga action. Obviously, RB Leipzig still top of the Bundesliga, 3 points above Bayern Munich after their result at the weekend. Some tricky games coming up, obviously, this weekend for both teams because they're at lower teams in the Bundesliga. Ingolstadt is who RB Leipzig play away from home at Ingolstadt. Hasenhüttl goes back to his former club, Ingolstadt, which he did so well with last year. And a difficult game for them, even though Ingolstadt are struggling. They've only had one win on the season. I still think going back, when there's a little bit of history between the two coaches, you go to a place like Ingolstadt, which is a smaller stadium, you know what you're going to expect. As a team that's flying high, if there's going to be a potential banana skin, when things are going well, they've never lost in the league. It's always when you least expect it. So this one for me is a real tricky game for Leipzig. So I'm intrigued, Phil. I know you'll be watching this one as well at the weekend. It'll be a good game.
Ingolstadt haven't won 17 of their last 18 Bundesliga games, right? Leipzig won their last 8. I mean, something has to go really wrong for Leipzig not to win this game. They're scoring goals, Ian. I mean, I wouldn't bet with your money against Leipzig, mate. There's no
I love the story that Leipzig are flying so high, but I also think that along the way, there's going to be that slip up against someone that you least expect. So for me, with all the story behind this one, Ingolstadt, it would have to be out of their mind, and Leipzig would have to have an awful day for it to happen. But I still think that this is a matchup that you go to where you're thinking to yourself, this is an easier game for us because they're bottom of the table, they're struggling, they've got no confidence. This could be a game that maybe we could have a tough run in here, or it's going to be an easy run for us. I think it could be trouble. Bayern Munich, they're still 3 points behind Leipzig, as I just mentioned. They've got a very tough game. They play at home against Wolfsburg. Now, Wolfsburg, if they lose this game and Darmstadt or Hamburg win behind them, Wolfsburg would drop into the relegation zone, which is incredible. You think of where they were in the Champions League last season and the seasons before that. They were such a great team, excellent players, sold a bunch of players, now struggling at the bottom of the table. I don't see anything else other than a Bayern Munich win because they know they've got to play well, Bayern.
I mean, I look at that bottom 5. Hamburg, they've been down there the last couple of seasons, which is just unbelievable for a football club, I'd say. It's a club you know well, of course. Wolfsburg, Werder Bremen, Mönchengladbach, unbelievable.
No.
Do you think that is testament to the competitive balance of German football, or do you think that's a slant against these clubs? Because a lot of rumours, Ian, that Schalke are going to have to sell a lot of their young players here in January. Is there any truth to that?
There's a lot of rumours going around right now. I don't believe much of it because there's so many talented youngsters coming through Schalke the club's been in a bit of turmoil recently. European competition as well as domestically, they've really been under a bit of pressure. The fans always turn up. There's always 60,000 at that stadium every single game. They're always there. It's like a culture club where the fans turn up and they live and breathe this religion, which is Schalke. And the kids continue to come through on a conveyor belt. That's one of the best teams in Germany for youth academy prospects and German international players to come from. So the rumours are certainly there. I've heard them too, but I'm not sure how big the rumours actually are and whether or not they're true. There's a big game in the west side of Germany, speaking of Schalke, this weekend. Borussia Dortmund are sixth in the table. They take on Cologne in Cologne, who have had a good season so far. They've only lost 3 games. Dortmund only lost 3 games. 2 points between the two clubs. And Dortmund, the format they've been in for. I mean, they're such an exciting team to watch. To find them 6th place in the Bundesliga tells me that inconsistency, some bad mistakes defensively, lack of concentration in the Bundesliga has taken place, but also that maybe their attention is in the Champions League rather than in domestic football for them.
To be fair, there's 3 points separating 6th from 3rd.
Yeah.
Right? So it's probably not a position they're overly concerned about. Now, they're, 6 points behind Bayern Munich. It's a decent chunk. Borussia Dortmund don't start the season expecting to win the league. They know for them to win the league, Bayern Munich has to do something wrong. Mm-hmm. I still think when it's all said and done, quality and class raise to the top. I think they'll finish in the top 3, which is always a success for Borussia Dortmund. But I don't think their squad's deep enough, Ian, to compete in the Champions League, to compete in the Bundesliga. They've got this big winter break coming up, which will help them when you have a smaller squad like this. But and I think when you're bringing through those young players that just aren't quite ready yet. They're not far away, but they're not quite ready yet. And you know with youngsters you don't get consistency.
Yeah.
Given what Tuchel has to work with, nothing wrong with being in 6th at this point. I don't think second half of the season RB Leipzig are going to maintain that consistency. I think they'll get caught. And I think if I had to pick 2 that will be at the top 2 in March or April, I'm going to be born and say Dortmund and Bayern Munich will be the top 2.
My good friend Eric Winalda thinks somehow, some way, Borussia Dortmund still win the Bundesliga. I find it hard to believe right now. I mean, if I'm looking at the table right now, they're 24 points. They're now, 9 points off the top of the table. I just think that's too much of a gap. Plus, to your point, what you just mentioned there, don't forget that Leipzig have got a ton of money. They might spend in the winter transfer window. They might go out and spend and buy a big player, not necessarily that they need it, but they're not frightened to splash the cash. Sitting top of the table, they think to themselves, if they go in as winter champions in Germany, we can win the title here if we spend the money wisely and bring in the right players. It's a crazy story.
What are they getting in attendance at home?
30,000 sell out every game.
All right, so they're getting 30,000. They're spending untold amounts of money. You just wonder how they're making FFP work and all of that there. But let's just say they're Gordon Ramsay in the books, right? That's okay. They can do whatever they want. If in the situation that they're in, they'd be nuts not to go out in January and say, listen, we're top of the league here. We've got a great chance of winning this. If we go out and bring in 1 or 2 top-class players and attract them while we're top of the league, just to make sure we finish in the top 3. Right. They'd be really smart. There may be a little argument, Ian. You've played in the Bundesliga. Does bringing a player in January upset the balance when you're playing well?
When things are going well, it's almost as if you don't want to touch it, but nobody's expecting Leipzig to win the league. So I'll be surprised if they don't delve into the transfer market. Here's a stat for you. There's only 3 teams in the European game in the top 5 leagues right now that are undefeated. Only 3. Top 5 European leagues: France, Spain, Italy, Germany, and the Premier League. Can you name the 3?
France,
Spain, Germany, Italy, and England. Can you name the 3? 2 are from the same league.
So
you've already lost.
Hoffenheim, RB Leipzig, and Real Madrid?
Yes, you got it right. Spot on there. Well done. Yeah, Hoffenheim, RB Leipzig, and Real Madrid, the only 3 teams that are undefeated in the top 5 European leagues. That's unbelievable, really. Thinking those 3 clubs, 2 of them in particular, that came out of nowhere to be undefeated after 13 games is brilliant.
Yeah, I'll take handsome looks for 1,500, Bob.
Well done, buddy. That was a good one. Let's finish on some Major League Soccer stuff. We know that MLS Cup is coming around. We probably won't talk too much Major League Soccer throughout the courses of our shows going forward, but we do like
just
to
on that though, we're going to have a Major League Soccer show though, so to feed that. We're not going to ignore you, so we'll have a Major League Soccer
always
show.
Be there, but we'll delve into it when we get the chance on our show. And obviously, with my history playing in MLS, it's always great to have that opportunity to get 1 or 2 interviews with some players and coaches along the line as well. So we definitely will touch upon it, and we know it's quite important to a lot of the people out there who are listening. So this one's for you, MLS Cup Final. We know that it is a massive matchup. It is a big game between 2 franchises that have never been at MLS Cup before. They've never won it before. So this is a moment where Toronto, so much investment in that club since they came into the league. I think it was back in 2007. I might be mistaken. It might have been 2008. Then also Seattle Sounders that I played against in the USL back in 2010 before they came into the league. So they've been in the league less time than Toronto FC. None of them have ever won it. 2 big clubs, spent a lot of money. Who wins?
Toronto. Because I think when you look at Seattle's weaknesses defensively, I think they're vulnerable to the likes of to creative players like Giovinco. Giovinco is the best player in the league. Seattle come in a decent form. What is their form in? I think they've won 4. Seattle have won 5 of their last 6 games. So they come in a decent form. That's an important factor. If you look at their these 2 teams this season, they played once, drew 1 each. It was in Toronto, so Seattle won't go up there with any fear. But I just feel if you look at the 3 best players in Toronto, Giovinco, Bradley, Altidore. For me, they're big game players. If you look at Seattle's 3 best players, Alonso, Marshall, and Roldan. Roldan's a young player. Alonso Marshall has been excellent for them this season. I just think the experience and the quality is on the side of Toronto, and it'll be a good game. There'll be goals in it. But if you look at Toronto, they're very good in wide areas, Ian. I can only see one winner. I think Toronto will win it, but I think it'll be close.
Especially at home, you would imagine that Toronto would be favourites, a club that obviously has been in the league for a while and had limited success in front of an incredible support group. I mean, the Toronto fans and Canadian fans in general love football. They love the game, and we always hear from the Canadian supporters on social media how much they enjoy the game, and especially watching the shows. They are terrific, and they deserve this, Toronto. I think their fans, to have the final at their stadium. It's recently been developed, obviously, and you can clearly see that with the matchup against Montreal. They're up for the game. I don't see anything other than a Toronto win because of that reason. The game's in Toronto. It's cold weather conditions. It's going to be freezing. You know that Toronto are used to playing and training in that condition, so they're well prepared for the matchup. The fans will be absolutely partisan and bouncing inside that stadium. I think Seattle is an interesting story, however. Having changed their coach, Phil, recently with Ziggy Schmidt going out the door, bringing in Brian Schmitzer, who I'm not really too familiar with him. I know him. I've seen him around. He's been in the league and been around Seattle since they've come into the league back in the day. It's interesting enough to me that since Clint Dempsey has fallen out of this team, they've started to win a lot of games. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it or the fact that Nicolas Adero's come in and just tore it up and been fantastic. But Clint Dempsey's found himself, unfortunately for health reasons, out of the team. But I wonder if there was some differences within that locker room between Clint Dempsey, Ziggy Schmidt, and some of the MLS players, or even the American players or foreigners inside that dressing room that just didn't get on, that didn't make it click. I was up in Seattle about 3 months ago and watched them before Ziggy Schmidt got fired, and they were woeful. They were really bad, really poor at home. New York took advantage of them and won the game. But to see the team right now, the confidence they're in, you can never, ever bet against them.
Ziggy's an old, experienced coach. He's been about a long time. It's hard to know, Ian, because you do get clicks in dressing rooms, and you would know this better than me. Clint Dempsey was a fantastic player. he's been an exceptional DP for Seattle. Come back, done a terrific job year after year after year. But it seems like Major League Soccer is going to make a shift away from these big name DPs into the more modest DPs that come in and genuinely improve their team, rather than this is about marketing, this is about attracting sponsors. That shift may be the reason why people like Ziggy Schmidt, Bruce Arena, these older coaches that, let's just say, have question marks over them tactically, are starting to get pushed out for the younger coaches. Greg Vanney's come in here at Toronto, done a superb job. And it's not enough just to go out and buy good players, big name players, throw them out in the field. Here's 4-4-2, go win. Boys, you have to have tactical nous. And so I just feel that will be a big factor. And, the things that matter at the highest level now matter in MLS. You can't get away with clicky dressing rooms, all that stuff.
It's a great point.
These things make a difference now.
Yeah. When I first came over back in 2008 to MLS, to Salt Lake, I was surprised at how unprofessional it was inside the dressing room at times.
Is that right?
With the way that players were acting, obviously going out and eating what they want, not necessarily looking after their bodies, drinking before matches, after matches, and players before games not eating together. It really was more of a relaxed environment, which was difficult for me at first to get used to, even though I used to enjoy a couple of pints before games, especially in Germany. The night before, the team would always get together and have a pint. In MLS, it just seemed like the players took advantage of that, and the players really didn't listen to the coaches as much as they probably should have done. Nowadays, it's a different story. Well professional, younger pros coming into the game, more money being spent, business side of things in Major League Soccer is looking good, academies are growing, and these two teams are a great example of how to put it in the right way, how to build it the right way. Proper stadiums. Seattle obviously wanted to stay in that stadium instead of building their own. And for obvious reasons, you can see why. They sell it out week in and week out, and the atmosphere is fantastic. I will go on a personal front here, Phil, and I'll say, as a former Portland Timbers captain, I can never ever support Seattle Sounders. Can't stand them. But my good friend Garth Lagaway, who brought me over to MLS, is now the GM there, and I'm not surprised to see him having success with Seattle Sounders, already getting them to the final. I do have on the other side Robin Fraser, who was my assistant coach at Real Salt Lake when I first came over. He's there in Toronto alongside Greg Vanney, so I'm supporting Toronto with my good mate Will Johnson, who will be on the field for Toronto as well. So I don't see anything other than Toronto winning this game. Give me your score prediction.
I'm going to say Toronto nick it, but I want to give a couple of caveats before we go.
Tell me.
Schmetzer, when I first came to the United States, I met Brent Schmetzer at Seattle Sea Dogs, and I was offered a contract.
Say that name again.
Brent Schmetzer.
No, what was the team?
Seattle Sea Dogs. They were an indoor football team back then.
Seattle Sea Dogs.
This was before this was back where they
Seattle Sea Dogs.
Seattle didn't have a football team back then. They had an indoor league, right? I'm just having this is my glory days story. Right? when I get a few barrels of beer in me, right? And at the bar anyway. I'm going to completely invent and make up the rest of the story, but Brian said I was the best player he ever saw. I think Brian had as many barrels of beer as I had. Anyway, he's a guy that, for me, was a surprise choice in getting the Seattle job. I mean, he knows the Seattle football scene very, very well, having coached in Tacoma, which, of course, is just outside Seattle. So he knows the scene well. He's 54, 55, so he's right about that age where he's borderline older generation, younger generation. What is it, a year younger than yourself for? So I think better looking.
Twice my age.
better looking. And if he pulls off the win, especially Seattle, which is, I know you're a Portland man, but it's a proper football club, right?
Yeah.
If he pulls off the win for Seattle, given what the high Ziggy was up there for so long, experienced MLS coach, what an achievement! What an achievement! Especially if he does have a clicky dressing room with Clint Dempsey. So fantastic for him.
I was saying this to a couple of my friends today. If he actually wins the title in his first few months in charge of the team, that would be an incredible story, because the team sucked before he took over. Now he's taken over. If he wins, he should just retire. Just retire, get a job in the backroom staff, take something else, because eventually, Phil, what's going to happen is There's no doubt in my mind Garth Lagerwey's got a bigger coach in mind. He's got a bigger name in mind to lead this team forward.
Can you do that if he wins?
Why not? Why not? I don't know. What else? How better can it get? He's already won the MLS Cup. I mean, what's going to happen next season? If they don't win MLS Cup, they're going to replace him. So it only gives him one more season to repeat what he's just done. Or they make the decision to give another coach a full preseason and go at it right now. I don't think that he can do that now because he's under contract and just recently signed a contract. But if I was him, I would be considering the fact that I've had so much success quickly with this club and I've been around for a long time. I'll happily accept a nice job on the board or behind the scenes, and I'll be here whenever that next coach doesn't work out. I'll happily step in again and maybe win another championship.
I don't know. For Lagerwey,
no.
If Seattle win this, he looks an absolute legend.
Yeah, he won't have to buy a pint, that's for sure, in Seattle. I'm not sure if he drinks or not. You know, he might be alcohol free. I don't know. But Toronto for me, and I'm going for a 3-0 win for Toronto. I can't see them. The biggest problem for Toronto is they concede goals. You've seen the last 2 games against Montreal. I think it finished 7-5 in aggregate. I mean, that was a crazy couple of games as well. I can't see them maybe keeping a clean sheet. So maybe 3-1 I'll go with for Toronto.
You know, here's the thing. If Seattle score first goal, Toronto, as we've seen throughout the season, don't panic when they fall behind. So they fall behind in this game 1-0. I still fancy them to come back and win. So for me, I can't identify any major weaknesses in that Toronto team that I would say Seattle, they're going to exploit this or exploit that. So for me, you can only see Toronto win.
Excellent stuff, Phil. As always, it's been a pleasure with you. For everyone out there who's listening, watching, keep on listening and watching. Let us also hear from you on social media, on Twitter at Beyond the Pitch, and you can follow us personally on our individual Twitter handles. We've got a big week coming up. We know that we've been a little irregular with our shows recently, but we've been very busy planning a Beyond the Pitch special, which you'll hear more about hopefully next week or the week after. But things are moving forward very quickly for Beyond the Pitch, Phil.
Yes, as you say, Ian, big week coming up for us. We're off to the Big Apple. We're looking forward to that special coming out. Can't say more than that at the moment. Very, very excited. We've been very, very busy in the background. So thanks for watching, folks. Thanks for all the comments. We're really excited about what's going to happen over the next few weeks. And so keep the comments coming. Keep Facebook messages, tweets and all that there. And I would say first week of January, this is going to become much more interactive. So thanks very much, folks. Thanks for watching.
See you, people.
Ciao.
See you next time.
See you, mate.